Namaha. Oh my God, the fumes of the smoke are overwhelming me. It's like I'm being swept away into Kundalini land. So when I meditate, the whole purpose is that I'm I can do it in one of two ways. One is that go to I can go up to the complete Turiya state and sit there and contemplate life. Sometimes it's difficult for me to get to Turiya state in that non-dual void. So I find it that I need a technique, I need a process. And so I can do vipassana, I can do mindfulness, or I can do yoga, or I can do different techniques to help me calm the body down, calm the mind down, and then open myself to that vast Turiya state in which I can contemplate the magic of the non-dual source of everything. But the whole idea of a step-by-step physical embodied awakening was what Kundalini was always about. And in fact, it is the foundation of most of the ancient teachings of yoga, of different kinds of yoga, going back thousands of years. And it goes right back to ancient Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia. It was known, this inner spinal power that could be awakened, that could alter the chemistry of the human being, alter everything, make them fully conscious and aware, of themselves, of their their nature, their embodiment. And so from very early on, I was interested in awakening Kundalini because I realized that my body, my inner being, my sense of self was completely out of whack. I'm talking now 23, 24 years ago. I was physically fit, but I was mentally torn up. I had a few psychedelic experiences and seen other sides. And I had bad relationships. I lost a business. So it was a dramatic period for me back in sort of 96, 97. And when I started meditating in 98, the first meditation I ever learned was the Self-Realization Fellowship of Kriya Yoga, Yogananda. And I had done basic mindfulness and things before, but nothing with such intention as Kriya Yoga was. And I did not know about mantras. I did not know about the reality of Kundalini and what it was. And it was a dramatic year, but the body reacted negatively. This was now 98. The body reacted negatively and said, no, I don't want this. And, I used to smoke, I used to drink. I suddenly started wanting not to do any of that anymore. And I started to feel movement in my spine, activity, things like that all of you have felt. What we now know is prana kundalini, the movement of prana in the body. And the more I did kriyas, the more my prana came under control. So I was able to become more powerful, focused, steady. And then I took initiation into Raja Yoga, Advaita, from Ramakrishna Mission. And I did their mantra and I did work on Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. And I studied that for 6 years while doing this Kriya Yoga. But then I introduced Shakti to it and I started doing the Panchadashi Mantra, the Ka E La Rim and Ain Klim. So I didn't know what it meant at that time, but I liked it, so I started doing it. And the alignment of the spinal cord started to form, and I started to have better visionary experiences in Kriya, in Turiya, in Jyoti Mudra. I started to have explosive feelings in my heart. I started to heat in my Muladhara. And I remember the day it all came together was in September of 2006. It just kind of aligned, and I knew that that was it. This is what I had been looking for. It took me years to fully understand its power, but I knew that day that this was an awakening occurring, a massive awakening. And I had heard people tell me, oh, my Kundalini woke up on so and so date, and I wondered that if it did wake up in those people, why wasn't their life completely transformed? If it really woke up, this was the question I was asking. Was that if and when it happened to me, everything changed. It was I was on a trip for 3 days, right? Meaning the world kept dissolving in and out of itself. I was ecstatically blissful all the time. The heart had exploded. And I remember I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Now, it wasn't like, some goddess came from above and said, Raja, you have been chosen now for awakening. No, it wasn't like that. It was a kind of knowing that I had tapped into something that was not ordinarily available to everybody. And this knowing changed my life. Like I hope it has changed all your lives. That something gave me a glimpse behind a veil. And I was able to see something that ordinary people, unless they did bhakti or hallucinogenic psychedelics or something, would not catch a glimpse of, right? And it was far greater than any psychedelic I'd ever done before. And I'd done many psychedelics. And it was a overwhelming rewiring experience in the body that occurred. Of course, I dramatically fell ill after that, and I had the worst fevers and the worst months after that. But then I got better, and I started to do intense research into what I was going on. What was happening to me. So now we're talking September 2006. My wife is pregnant in October 2006. December 2006, she goes to India on a holiday for a business trip, and the doctor says you can't travel, bed rest. The baby has to be born in India. We had no plans of staying in India, so I packed up lock, stock, and barrel and went off to India. And we said, okay, we'll stay here a year, have the baby, then go back to New York. I'll travel back and forth from New York. And I did that. And it was horrible, horrible year. 9 times I flew that year in 2007, back and forth from New York. We had Noor, my daughter was born. And this moment came and we said, we're going to stay here for a while, that I can run a kind of remote business. And so just look, I get my awakening, and then I'm forced to come and live in India to meet all these gurus and teachers and amazing people. Just look at the sequence of events that occur and the serendipities that occur. And what happened was that I started to do deep exploration. Even though I was still making films and doing digital media, I was doing all that stuff. I didn't enjoy it anymore. All I wanted to do was not only meditate, but study, go get initiation. So I had a very good plan. My plan was that I would make films about great teachers, and that would give me access to all of them. And I was right. It did give me access to all of them. And So, I started with in 2010. I made a film on Shri M. Then I made who had initiated me into the first mantras earlier on. Then I introduced me to Dr. Karan Singh. Then that introduced me to Yogi Raj Siddhanath. Then I had been listening to the Panchadashi Mantra of Guruji Amritananda for 3 years, but I never contacted him. So one day I decided I'll call Devi Puram and try and make an appointment to meet Guruji Amritananda. It's a different part of India. It's like going from, New York to Florida or something. It was a long way to go. And I called. They had a number on the website for Devi Puram. And this was in 2010. And I called, and the man picked up the phone with a lovely voice and said, "Hello, Guruji speaking." And I thought, all right, this is good. Guruji answered his own phone. And not only that, he said, "Hello, Guruji speaking." I said, all right, that's good. So you're going to teach me something. So I told him what I did, and I went over to see him. I had no idea what Sri Vidya was. I was doing the mantras, and I'd listened to his audios, but I had no idea. And then he started teaching me and initiating me. And then we made a film on him, and I interviewed him for some 10, 12 hours, and just that interview was a transmission. It was like being, and I knew that this awakening had triggered a series of coincidences, serendipities, openings for me that would not have happened. I could meet any guru I wanted to. I could meet anybody I wanted to. I could just talk to them. Everybody would share information with me. It was not like, I didn't have to come and join a system and become part of a process. It was immediate. The rapport was very quick. I saw a strange thing. A lot of the gurus and yogis would look up onto my right side top above me to see something. And I didn't know what it was at that time, but then I realized later on that there's an energy field that occurs there. And I can see it now. But they were looking at me to see what had happened. Is something happening to this fellow? What's going on? It was like a radar scan, like somebody was scanning me, then I started going to Pondicherry, and the Kundalini now is giving me access to Turiya, access to Samadhi, more and more and more. And it's not like you get Kundalini awakening and that's it. You're on the other side. It's a stage in a much bigger journey that comes. Right? So all of you, to some degree, have had your Kundalini awakened now. The moment you can feel heart bliss, the moment you can, by intention in your meditation, move the energy up, the moment you can feel the Turiya state and experience bliss and Ananda, that's not what ordinary people get, okay? It's not what ordinary people get. Ordinary people don't have that. They have to work very hard to get that. But I really started studying. I didn't know Sanskrit. I didn't know anything. I was just like a, beginner's luck, accidental tourist. I was an accidental mystic on this journey to kind of find out what this is all about. And I had no desire, because I'd go to all these people and they tell me it's all God's grace. God has done it for you. God has chosen you. And I'd say, fuck that. I don't buy that. That's just bullshit. There is no such thing. I think there is me and there's consciousness, and we got to figure out how to find the two together, and figure it out. And so a lot of the teachers I went to were very involved with the religiosity of it, right? And I don't have a religious bone in my body. So it was very difficult for me. But I enjoyed it because there were rituals, there were energies, there were transmissions, and I was getting all of this. So I was very happy. And I began to see that even rituals were processes of alchemy. That if you did a Kaula ritual in a particular way, or you did a fire ritual, or you did a church service, or bent your head 5 times a day in Islamic prayer, these were rituals that awakened Kundalini. And so you start to become this detector of Up every place I went to, I would feel the energy. I would know that there was a saint had meditated here. I would feel it. In dreams that saint might come. It was there was a sensitivity that was growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So when I now go back and I had read Arthur Avalon, Soundarya Lahari, Parashrama Suttis, all those things back, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Now I go back and read them and I say, oh, it's a manual. It's a guidebook. It's like an ayahuasquero describes going on a trip for 8 hours into the land of the mother ayahuasca and comes back and does beautiful paintings. These books were that. They were seers who had had experiences, who were recording what they saw, what they felt, what happened when they went into those states of consciousness. And so when you read, there are two main books on how to practice Kundalini available. One is Soundarya Lahari, which is the book by Shankaracharya, which was written around 800 AD. And then the main other book is the Sri Shat Chakra Nirupama, which is what we're going to learn today, right? And I'm going to divide the class into two parts. It's a 55 verses, and the 55 verses are a trip, like a massive psychedelic trip this guy goes on, right? And we're going to try and visualize the trip with him, okay? So today we'll do 27, and then we'll do the rest next class. But basically, you're going on a trip. And you're going to try. So the best way to describe a Kundalini awakening is that it is not a description, it is a prescription. It is a offer of suggestion of what you might experience when these awakenings start to happen, right? It describes it. It's like saying, if I say to you, you will see the color gray of thunderclouds, you will see a lightning bolt going through you, you will see a goddess with 4 arms and black skin coming and standing in front of you. That may not happen for you. You will see your own experience, but the archetypes, the metaphors of what I'm going to describe will happen at each of those places along the 6 chakras. All right? So it's not that you will necessarily see that goddess or that color, but you will experience something very similar and metaphorical the more you observe at each point, right? So before we start, let us sit together and just chant 9 times or more. Let's do as many as we can with single breath. Bring it into your lower part, tighten your butt. Feel the heat of the anus. And then we're going to do lam, vam, ram, yam, hum, om. All right? And after om, we're going to go to the silence and open ourselves upwards to receive grace. Then we're going to come back down again, tighten the butt again, breathe in, and lam, vam, ram, yam, hum, om. Okay? Now, this is the fundamental Kundalini awakening practice, right? You don't need to do anything else. Everything else is a nice alchemy of combinations that you can do. So, let's do that together. Ready? Take a deep breath in. Lam, vam, ram, yam, hum, om. And now hold it out for a while. Above your head. Again, take it in, tighten your butt. Lam, vam, ram, yam, hum, om. Try and do it in one breath. Take a deep breath in. Lam, vam, ram, yam, hum, om. Lam vam ram yam ham om. And now follow it up your spine as you travel up the chakras, opening each of the petals as you go up. Ready? Lam vam ram yam ham om. Deep breath in. Lam vam ram yam ham om. From your Muladhara. Lam vam ram yam ham om. And feel an energy moving up your spine. Lam vam ram yam ham om. Lam vam ram yam ham om. And now imagine that you're pulling a string up your spinal cord and cool air going up. Pulling it up, up, up out of you. And warm liquids, two elephants pouring warm liquids into you from either side. Now take your right hand and put it over your head, about 2 inches above your head, and just hold it there and see if you start feeling anything. Maybe some air around there, or air coming out of your head. Just feel it. See that feeling? The more you do even the Bij mantras, a cool jet of air will start coming out the top of your head and hit your hand. The more you do it, and it heats up at Muladhara and cools down by the time it goes out the top of your head. This is a sure sign that Sushumna is opening. How many of you felt that little air coming out the top of your head? Yes? So this is a good indication that Sushumna is opening and Kundalini, the Prana Kundalini, is moving up and coming out the top of it. Now that we did that just by the work you've done with me all these months and years, and by just doing the Bij mantra 12 times. We just did it 12 times and look what happened, right? Imagine if you did it 108 times, what would happen, right? And as you start to feel it, each one becomes a living center for you. Each one of your chakras becomes a living center.